like the makeup. Looks good.
Thank you.
Matches the shirt. I think you have green lipstick on.
I was wearing that, but I took it off.
Good.
Just let you know we are live on YouTube, so anything you say is going live.
I was wearing that, but I took it off.
It's keys.
Him and his
Just let
funny
you know
hat.
we are live on YouTube, so anything you say is going live.
Oh, we just entered a vacuum of time and space there.
Just in case your computer fails, I'll look this one up. Link ready. Click.
It's all set here. Almost ready to go.
Sure, take your time.
Mm.
Do you want to put this here?
Why?
2 minutes to go.
Get there.
Why would you like it here? This is where default.
I like it there, so it's underneath the camera. So if I ever want to see what I look like, I can see what I look like.
Oh, that's actually a pretty good reason.
So then I say, oh, how do I look like that?
That's the live YouTube in the chat if you want to post or anything like that.
Okay. Can you send it to me?
I knew you were going to say that.
Send me an email?
Text message.
Okay. Oh, you just, I just did what you did.
1 minute.
Got it.
Turn the volume off.
I did.
anyway.
You might want to kill your.
Did. Done.
Is he saying it's a separate link?
You guys see me something?
The audio just went down.
Overshoot.
It's connection, I think.
Guys, kill your mic and audio for a moment. I'll tell you when to come back in.
Okay.
When I introduce you guys. Well, hello and welcome everybody to the 8th episode of Open Talk. I'm your host, Travis Keys. I am a New Yorker, a foodie, a movie lover, a photographer, and chairman of APA New York. I created this show to have candid, basically, I wanted very candid, honest, and open talks about the current climate of photography in the age of COVID-19. So it was very important to me to have the right guests and a diversity of people. And tonight, I am very, very happy to introduce two people. I have Susan and Cliff. Why don't you kind of say hello there to us?
Hey.
How's it going?
What is going on? First and foremost, where are you guys calling from or zooming from?
Oh, it's a long story. We're out here in Moab, Utah right now. We shouldn't be, but we are.
Well, how did that happen?
Our last workshop, Susan's been traveling for longer than I am, but we went from Vegas to Death Valley for a workshop. And then we went out to Moab, and that's when everything kind of hit the fan. So we stayed out here. You know, New York's a tough place to be right now. We had a tough time even thinking about getting back. I was supposed to be heading out to Japan from here, so I had a one-way ticket and not to come home. So we stayed.
Yeah, I figured New York City wasn't the safest place to go back to, and also all our work got canceled. So, I mean, why not stay in the beautiful location where it's really nice and we can be creative, or head back to New York where it's kind of.
So, I mean, you certainly guys are in a beautiful, beautiful area. And what's it like been for you guys being, and what's your living arrangements at the moment?
Well, we're lucky enough to have a friend out here who's renting us their RV. So we've been living in a 26-foot trailer for the past 2 months, and we haven't killed each other yet.
Yeah.
But I mean,
So those of you in New York City who are complaining about being stuck in your apartment, imagine a 26-foot trailer to live in.
I think that's pretty challenging right there. Very, very challenging. Very, very challenging.
It's been a lot of fun.
So obviously I want to jump into you both, work together a lot, and but I want to jump into, we're going to kind of separately go into you as different photographers and dive into where you kind of started. And so Susan, I'm going to start with you. We're going to kind of go back in time to a little Susan. Where did you first pick up a camera, and what was that camera?
Sure. So out of high school, I was interested in photography. I took the typical black and white photography classes, but I did my first internship with a newspaper, and it was filmed back then too, just to paint the picture of how long ago this was. And they printed my picture in the newspaper, and from that moment on, I was hooked. I love the concept of being able to share a moment in time or an experience with people. And I basically bought all the newspapers that first episode of my pictures being printed. But photojournalism was such a great training for me to become the photographer who I am today, because I learned how to capture a story in one image. And working with the best photographers in the newspaper I was at was really, really inspiring and motivational, and it's kind of guided me on my course now. So from doing photojournalism, I went on to do event photography, weddings, portraits, and I absolutely love doing that because you're able to spend the most special day with your clients who become my dear friends because of this, and you capture these moments where they'll cherish for the rest of their lives, and you get to be creative. So over the years, I just push the limits. I do all my types of photography, so I'll make sure I incorporate a landscape photography into my wedding pictures and light painting, and they love it because that's like really my true passion is landscape photography and light painting photography. But wedding photography is so special because you're capturing these special moments. So from then I ended up actually growing into doing education. So my true love all along has been travel. And what I love about travel is you're truly living in the moment. You're having these experiences. And because of photography, I was able to share that with my friends and family back home. And over the years, here's some of my workshops. I started out by doing one local workshop, fall foliage. I had 6 close friends come, and just seeing how my teaching helped them to grow and also inspire me as well, see things at angles I wouldn't have seen. And it was just overall such an amazing experience. I thought, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life, is teach, inspire, and create these experiences. So along with Cliff, we started a business. My business is called Photo Adventures, and together we partner and co-teach. This is our past adventure at Death Valley. We took the Jeeps out to go to the racetrack playa here. And these are some of our students. You could tell they were having a miserable time.
Yeah, it's a terrible place.
I have to admit, this is the first time on Open Talk we've had 2 guests in one box. So
I hope that works for you guys. But,
it's great. It's great.
I think there might be a little bit of an echo. I'm not sure if your volume is up on your computer, Travis.
I'm not getting it, but I'll take a look.
But so these are our pictures from what I've been doing since the beginning of the year. I've been traveling since January. I started with a private workshop in Death Valley. Then I went out to Vegas and did some light painting portraits for a couple weeks. And here's my next group, another Death Valley clan with Cliff. And it was such a great experience. We went all over Death Valley, sunrise to sunset, the stars. We might have driven them a little crazy, but they loved every second of it.
Yeah,
Oh,
they slept well after the workshop, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. This is our past workshop. Obviously, we had a little bit of a fallout because of the
Yeah.
COVID virus. Some people just weren't safe traveling, and we had to they respect that as well. But we kind of got this workshop in right under the radar as like
Hmm.
everything started to go bad. We had everything planned. They were with us, and we were able to complete the workshop and create an extra memorable trip for them
Yeah.
before the COVID virus really took its grasp. But this is us in Utah.
So I have to ask, when you were right 2 months, like figure 2 months before this, what was the last shoot you really remember before realizing like things are changing?
So it's hard for me to say that because I've been traveling since January. So I mean, I was in Death Valley, I was in Vegas. I was never in front of a TV. I actually haven't watched TV since January. I don't have a TV when I'm traveling,
It's
and
probably
I
good you're
really
missing
don't
the
have a
news.
TV. So I really
Yeah.
get my TV from word of mouth, my news from word of mouth, and also from the internet. But it was interesting because it was like in the local shops and like all around me when I started to hear the commotion. Like this isn't just something little, so it probably was the beginning of March when we were in Utah scouting for this trip that like things started to seem like they weren't going on track. Like this isn't just a little thing that's happening in the world.
Yeah. When did you first realize that it was actually changing around you? Like the first realization, you're like, this is something very different.
Sure. So I think that would have to be when they closed down the restaurants and the hotels while we were teaching our workshop. And thankfully, they let the guests who were already at the hotel stay. But if you had not checked in, you couldn't. So that's when we kind of figured this is really serious, and we're in a small tourist town. So they didn't want spectators come. This is their height of their season. They thought everyone's going to come for spring break, especially since Colorado was closing down. And they didn't want to bring the virus here. So they took preliminary
It started to get real because once they shut down the ski slopes, everyone in Colorado decided, well, let's come to Moab. And Moab's not prepared for this. They have a very small hospital here. It's basically just emergency medevacs and triage for people who, hurt themselves on the rocks. They're not prepared, and they knew it. So they took proactive measures, and rightly so. But then we started our workshop attendees started getting emails from their flights saying, I don't know if I can get home. Things are being delayed. Restaurants are shutting down. I was on an email every day. I was on a phone call every day with Japan, my project, to my crew out in Europe at the time, deciding day by day by day, are you leaving for Japan? Are we doing this 2-month film shoot out in Europe and Asia? And every day was updates, and every day was updates, and the updates got worse and worse and worse. And so it just started getting more and more real when people couldn't get home. We realized that we probably weren't going to get home.
So you're basically out there. You still have guests and stuff like that. I'm gonna go back to the screen share now, just so we can look at some more of your photos while we're talking.
Yep, we were out there, and all of a sudden, like, I get a phone call from a friend who's a travel agent saying, "Hey, they might start stopping airline flights." And I kind of had to tell my guests, like, "Hey guys, I know you guys are flying back, just to let you know, like, this is what's going on in the world." Because we were out from sunrise to sunset with little communication with the real world. Our experiences are really, we're kind of remote out here. So we every night we'd like have like a come to grips and like talk about reality and see how everyone's life is being affected. And we were in our own little bubble until the end,
Yeah.
until a couple clients had to like figure out different ways to get home. But everyone got home safe.
It certainly looks like you're in your own bubble here.
This one is our
Is that full screen, Travis? I don't know. On my end, we can just see your whole desktop, or
yeah, this is the closing picture of our workshop. We stopped at a dinosaur museum, and it's actually my goal to go to the dinosaur museum because I think it's so funny. But we had our students pose, and Cliff obviously got eaten by a dinosaur.
I take them for the team sometimes.
I like the dinosaur.
It's
Yeah.
that's the one thing that to me is we just call them experiences. We don't call them photoshops, but it's about the experience, and that's the primary objective. So yeah, we get amazing photos in beautiful places, but if you can't have fun doing it, what's the point?
Right. And all our
So
participants in the past 2 months have written us and been like, thank God we did that trip.
Yeah.
Thank God. And they're like, we look at
Yeah.
the pictures, and it's like their little bit of
And they give us updates. Uh-oh.
our background
that's
story.
what happens when the green screen goes
Yeah, this is
bad,
real.
Aren't we
the
like,
glory of live TV.
That's great.
I don't know why it's doing that, but now
Well,
it's back.
we know that what you're when you're shooting. You do amazing light painting stuff like that. How did you get into light painting and this kind of stuff?
Sure. So, besides travel photography and landscape, light painting is my true love. I just love incorporating, I like creating unique pictures. So, I love starting with the blank canvas and creating lights and having beautiful models or beautiful subjects. It doesn't need to be models, but this was actually in that intermin between my workshops that I was out in Vegas for a couple weeks. And I just hired a bunch of models to come out to these sand flats. Actually, this is a mud flats, and do these long exposure pictures. I use a bunch of different light sources, lightpaintingbrushes.com,
Again.
Pro Photos, Lytra. I just use a bunch of different lights to create this, and I use an off-camera flash to sort of strobe them in at the end. But I just love creating unique images, and I feel like with light painting, you can do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much fun, especially when you're in terrible locations like that.
I know.
Yeah, right.
Here's another one. Using a Brillo pad and a whisk, we were able to create some fire.
The wonderful
Here's
sparks and yeah.
sparks. Yeah, I love that one. And here's another model, just using two simple lights, running around like a lunatic, which is typically what I do when I'm doing my light painting. And Cliff can vouch for
It's
that.
scary. Everyone, if you see their faces, are like, don't trip, what's going on? But the images are
Right. So just two lights running around on the playa, amazing sky that night. And that's, I think there might have been a moon, but I think that might be a lot of light from Las Vegas in the distance. Crazy how
So
much.
you're sourcing your models from Vegas and bringing them out there. Are they just typically coming out for a certain amount of hours and not an overnight? They just drive out and drive in.
Yeah, just driving. This actually is about 40 minutes from Vegas, not even 30 minutes from Vegas. And I just had a bunch of miles come for one night, and we just banged it out. I did it over a week, but I would just keep them rotating in and creating, and they loved it because people aren't familiar with light painting. And when they see the image, because they look at me like I'm crazy, and then they look at the back of my camera and they're like, "What is this magic?" So that's the best.
Well, I have
part,
to
is
say,
get
in the age of social distancing, these seem like the type of shoots you could still have.
I know, it's true. I've been thinking
Yeah.
about it.
And where did you find this next model?
Unfortunately, this is the only model I'm left with at the moment.
You definitely got the short end of the stick on this one.
So I've reached out to a couple models. They said they're quarantining at the time, and here in Moab. So this is my main model right now. He's very.
What's the
There's
craziest
no
thing
amount of
you've
lights.
made? What's the craziest thing she's made you do so far?
Oh my God. Besides break into and climb into a dinosaur mouth, there's actually several that I can't mention live.
We might get arrested. We can't talk about
Yeah,
this.
these days are things are tricky. You might want to take.
So we're going into a sort of a transition here of you being able to shoot and work with workshops. And what was that kind of transition like, where suddenly like you're like, oh my God, I can't bring people out anymore, and like, what am I going to shoot? Like, what was your inspiration to keep shooting, or was there any thought process to it, or you just instantly like, no, I'm out in the beautiful thing, I'm going to keep shooting?
I'm going to keep shooting. I'm just going to say, but we're actually being as safe as possible. We're in the middle of somewhere where there aren't many people. And a lot of people are quarantining in Moab, but there's no rules against not recreating, right?
Yeah.
So we're out recreating. We're on like back county trails. The national parks are closed, so we're not going there. We're going to these little state parks and places that are off the beaten trail. And I'm getting to do shots I never would have dreamed of if I would have been in New York. Obviously you can't be doing this in New York. So Cliff and I go every sunset and we do sunset photography. We set the time. We say, hey, we're leaving at this time no matter what we're doing. We close up our computers and we go on a mini adventure. And we know Moab like no other now.
Yeah, the state, and not the state parks, the national parks are definitely shut down. State parks depends on the location, the county. But there is so much beauty everywhere, honestly, that it's been almost a blessing in disguise to discover all these new locations. and
Yeah.
there aren't many people out. And so it's a safe thing that we practice. We keep social distancing. We don't see anyone else on the trails. If we do see a few people, it's a wave at a distance kind of a thing.
Right. And one of the fun things I've been doing is using ND filters. So our background's really giving us a problem. Oh, let me just fix
I think you
it.
just let it go.
We shifted
Just
over
let
from
it
the
go.
construction paper to
We had a
bigger
really
background.
jerry-rigged setup that worked well, but
You're
now
working
we've
with a huge
upgraded.
studio space, so I don't know what the problems are.
Yeah, we're in a small corner of the RV here.
I've been
You
getting to
haven't
mess
converted
around
the RV into a shooting studio yet, have you?
soon.
It's
We're
a work
working
in
on it.
progress. It's a work in progress.
I've been doing
It's
a
the
lot of
real
long
moments.
exposure photography here and messing around with ND filters. I use BW filters, and this is a mixture of a 10-stop and a 6-stop. And what we've gained from being out here is time. I mean,
Yeah.
we get epic
Yeah.
clouds, epic sky when it's beautiful out. We go out and shoot, and we have that luxury that we normally wouldn't have. You know, normally when you're sitting at your desk at home working on projects, you look outside, you're like, it's so beautiful. I wish I could go. And now it's like I have no work to be doing except for projects on my own. Like, you know, I don't have clients waiting on things. All of that's done. All my future work is in the future at the moment. And now is time for me. You know, now it's time for me to create. So I've been getting really creative with doing night photography. The stars here are incredible. And this is a mixture on the left of a star trail and a light painting of a waterfall, just a composite taken at the same time. I just like painted the water in at one shot and composed it over the star trail, but really amazing. I've thought about reworking this image 3 times, and that's also a blessing of being here. I can go back and reshoot that if I wanted. Normally,
Yeah.
you don't have that
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah, especially
So-
when you're on workshops, you don't get the time to really shoot yourself
Right.
ever. You're teaching or not be able to enjoy it all. And then now you're kind of, you know, I have to say, you know, I grew up in New York City and lived in many apartments and stuff like that. But now that I have a house about an hour outside the city, it's like I'm thankful every day that I have the space. And, you know, like you guys have literally walk out your door and talk about social distancing. You're not going to bump into anyone for miles.
Right.
Is that
Yeah.
yeah. So have you felt a huge disconnect that you aren't in the city? Like you're like, we're not really getting a grasp of what it really is like. And we have such a kind of unique feel where we are that you're not feeling what's really going on. Or have you felt that?
I mean, I get that disconnect the second I board a plane, right? So I can feel it immediately. The second I get on the other side of the GW bridge, I feel like I can breathe a little, right? So I understand that. And I guess for me at least, I intentionally try not to take anything for granted. So you can imagine after 3 or 4 weeks doing this every single day, and every single day is a unique adventure. Every single day is something we haven't seen before, something we're trying new. And it's play for sure, but we're also honing our skills, using different gear, trying different techniques, exploring new areas, and using this as an opportunity to grow, expand our skill set. And yeah, it is not New York at all. And, you know,
Yeah.
there's a couple of people in the chat that I know have seen the projections, and we're in touch with friends and family every day back in New York. So we're aware to the degree that we can be of what's going on there, but it's a very different reality out here at the same time.
So this is sort of your view right now.
That tonight it'll look like that.
Well,
This
the
is
wonderful thing
literally-
about
A little
the
different
wonderful
than
thing
a
about
few
this is it actually is not just a picture.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I've been getting into doing time lapses as well, which I love. I mean, just being able to capture motion and the energy and show it to people, share with people. This is actually, I've been doing a lot of iPhone time lapses because it's so simple. It takes up less space on your camera and your computer, and it's gorgeous.
Spending too much time
So
with me.
this is an iPhone.
This is an iPhone, yes.
One of
So-
the best things you can ever have in your pocket, wouldn't you say, Clifford?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is like a 15-minute drive from where we are right now too.
That's incredible, incredible. And then you've even gone into doing some more. How are you trying to do a couple a day now, or
Yeah, it depends on what the location is like. If we have a cloudy day, I'm out
you see the
there.
clouds, you're out there?
Yeah, totally. 'Cause, I mean, there's so many things you could do. You could use your filters and get a little blur. You could use it to set up your camera and do a time lapse. That's probably me running through my own shot, ruining it. It always happens. Can't help myself. There was another student of ours.
Yeah, it's one of our workshops.
So this is from our workshop. It was an incredible sunset. This is before the park closed. And this is my latest endeavors. I went back 3 times to get this video of the Milky Way rising over this mountain ridge. And I've learned so much just by repeat doing. I mean, how often do you get to repeat do an amazing shot that every time you say, if I only did this, I could get it better. So what
Is this still an iPhone?
no, definitely not.
No, I was about to say. And did you throw some lights?
So yeah, I was using a light.
Technically, I don't know. Could you do this? We'll
No,
have
you
to, we'll have to
definitely
try
can't.
this.
You definitely can't. I
We'll
tried.
see. We'll see.
That was with the Lytra light, illuminated
Yep.
at 5% the whole time. Just lighting up the mountain so I could get that beautiful video.
So this one looks very fun. Why don't you tell me about this one?
So I experiment with light painting, and not every light painting I do is perfect. So one night I was just experimenting with all my tools because I'm going to do a light painting tutorial on how to do light painting. So I have a lot of tools, and some of them I can like whip out and do amazing things. Others I'm just learning. So if you play this one, I'm attempting to learn how to do an orb, and a lot of repeat orbs I did in this one. And at the end of the night, it just became an experimental night where I ran through the frame. I used all my tools and just experimented. And this is what I feel like is fun about light painting. Everything's an experiment. And sometimes you get award-winning images. And if you keep trying, you'll like nail it. So that's what I was doing that night.
Well, it seems like you're doing some wonderful things. Now we're going to go to a little Cliff. Where was your first camera? What was your first camera, Cliff?
My first camera, it was a Canon S50, a little point and shoot, 5 megapixel, state of the art. I waited until digital was a thing. I couldn't. Like I tried this like old film camera and I literally put it away and I waited until 4 or 5 megapixels seemed to be about the sweet spot, and then I jumped in. Never looked back.
So where did the passion come from, and when did you first kind of know, like, wait, this is more than just something I'm just fancying. I want to do this as a career.
Yeah. I don't know if that ever really came as like this moment. The passion came from travel, which I didn't know I wanted to do either until after college. And then my friend who I spoke yesterday sent me, he was traveling to Europe after college, and his mom met his father in Switzerland. And so they were sending their son, and she was like, you know what, just go. I'll get your ticket. Just go. You'll thank me later. And that trip, 2 or 3 months in Europe right after school, it changed my life. It made me realize like there is so much to this world I want to share. How do I do it? It never even occurred to me. Photography. And then once I picked it up, I was like, oh, okay. Like I had a reason to pick up a camera, which is to explore my curiosity and go to these places. It wasn't just because I wanted to take a picture, it's because I wanted to see things. And the idea of taking a picture justified the reason to go see these things.
So why don't you tell me about this shot?
Oh, so all these are iPhone pictures. So I always honestly, I got DSLRs and I have a bunch of them. But that feeling that I had when I traveled first with that Canon S50, that point and shoot, I never wanted to go beyond that because everything else was more technical, was more, it takes you out of the moment. What lens, what's my aperture, what's my shutter speed? So I focal length, where am I focusing? What's the hyperfocal? And like that, incrementally, it takes you out of that joy, that feeling of just being in the moment. And so I'm constantly trying to find the best way to stay inside that moment and to just have that childlike feeling, really of just being there in awe. And so when I did a cross-country road trip with my phone, I've traveled all over the world with the iPhone now, and the iPhone seems to be the best tool. That's literally one click of a button, and notice as few technical decisions I need to make, right? So I can focus on the really important decisions like the color, the light, the composition, the moment, all of those things, they become clear when you don't have to worry about everything else. So these are just
when you're getting images like this, it's pretty hard to say that certainly the iPhone is so much fun and you feel so creative that you can just whip it out and do so many different things with it in your pocket and always have it there. But when you have a picture like this, how much processing or what did you use to process this image? Or
every image I share is processed, and the process takes less than a minute usually because I use Lightroom. I've been pretty proficient in Lightroom. I do a lot of training and work with students on that. And the beauty of Lightroom is everything you do once, you never have to do again. So if I get a look, I save it as a preset, I can copy it, bring this something else. And so you get in this habit, and after a while, you start to see images not for what they are, not for what they look like, but what they could look like. and
Yeah.
that translates into when you're standing in front of a scene and the immediacy of this, because you have a phone, I can do this while I'm standing there and then share it with someone on this beautiful screen. And it makes the whole process, the immediacy of this and the joy of it. It's been just a really fun ride.
So you tell me every image that we're about to show is iPhone?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's
So
a,
this is working with an organization called Big Life. I was out in East Africa for a while, kind of living off the grid too, but in a tent, didn't have my RV with me at the time. And this is just, we climbed this giant rock, and this guy was just standing there. I never met him. I had a driver with me that was translating, and the light was getting low, and I was just like, just stand there, and it's intimidating if you take out a big camera. And here it's just, you're just in the moment. He barely even noticed. We had a laugh. We were kind of pointing and then just moved on, really. It's nice and fun to climb around the rocks, especially out here, with no backpack, with nothing, water bottle maybe. But
so
that's
I'm gonna usually I would save some of these questions for a little later, but I'm gonna ask right now, since you are as excited I am as seeing the world and photographing the world. How are you handling this right now in terms of kind of, it feels like the world is kind of closed down at the moment and you can't go to these places, and trips that, from Japan and stuff like that are on hold, and like, is it really hitting you hard yet? Or is it sort of like, I'm still, because we have these moments of kind of feeling like stages of grief or something like that. And right, when I first kind of went through like all of this, I instantly like, how can I help the community, and what can I do? And I threw myself into creating shows, and this was birthed through it. And suddenly then, as the weeks went on and the gravity of it kind of went on, I'm like, wait, we're not getting back to any kind of old normal. It's going to be this new normal. And I'm starting to feel like, wow, I don't know that all those trips I was going to take, that they're on hold for a long time. Like, how are you dealing with this as someone who builds your business on travel and bringing groups to these locations and shooting them?
I mean, at first it was a big hit, right? Because I had a 2-month shoot through Asia and Europe planned. That was my income. I canceled all of my plans, all of my work. That was where I was going to live and shoot and make an income. And that was a big project that just dried up in a phone call with this. And so that was like a stark reality of where this is heading. And then sure enough, other shoots came in just like you, where all of a sudden your calendar kind of clears up. But at the same time, honestly, I'm not disappointed. It's been an eye-opening experience in a very engaging and motivating and inspiring way, honestly.
Yeah.
We got our background back. Yeah, honestly, that's the way I look at it, is much like you, it's how can I help the community? How can it's the focus has shifted tremendously, and that I have that same amount of passion. I've realized this over the last few years of teaching and inspiring and helping others and giving back, maybe even more so than even that love for travel. And so this is a beautiful opportunity to help others and myself in the process kind of reinvent, find whatever that new normal is, work with photographers to figure out how do you generate income at a distance? How do you deliver images? How do you make money as a photographer in this new world? How do you add value to people's lives with what we do? And that's been just an amazing experience and endeavor and a challenge, and a beautiful challenge at that. So I don't feel anything about what I've lost. It almost feels like what I've gained through this.
I have to say that's a beautiful, beautiful way to look at it. And talking about beautiful, tell me about this picture.
Yeah, that was 3 days living out of a car on the west coast of Ireland, dangling my feet off the cliff, which you you don't see in this image, just in case my mom is watching.
Yeah, I was about to say mom would have a heart attack.
So working with Apple and doing some other things and working on different platforms, when you're just walking around with a phone in your pocket, you start to really understand the platform, or just working with any platform. So I've gradually been trying to push the limits of what I can do with this device that everyone has, right? So I've been expanding what's possible. So this is a stitched HDR Pano raw DNG file using Adobe Lightroom. And so I found ways to just handle all the obstacles that are traditional inside of mobile photography, right? How do you handle dynamic range? How do you handle resolution? How do you handle field of view? How do you handle noise and all of that? And so a lot of these are stitched HDR panos. I use several different apps, bracketing, sequencing shots, to capture the field of view and the dynamic range and stitch them back together, all in Lightroom. Because what's the point of doing all this work and then shooting with your phone and making more work for yourself? So it becomes real simple when you understand the tool set in Lightroom. And I show people how to do that too, because the best gift I can give people and most of my students is time. If I can give them their time back, um, I take that very seriously. That's a real
Yeah.
value. That's the only resource we ever have. And so
I think it's one of the most
try-
important things. I think because it took me ages to find what I wanted to do in life, and photography for me was later in life. And I did a lot of things. I worked in film and TV. I worked on making movies, and then I owned nightclubs and bars. I just wasn't never ultimately happy. So once I found photography, I literally was like reborn. It was like I wake up happy every day, and if I can bring someone to that happiness and help share and anything that I've learned, that's why I'm chairman of American Photographic Artists. That's why I teach, and I do Adobe tutorials, and that's why I, do stuff with Sony. And that's why I want to give back as much, because you find that happy place. It's like it doesn't get any better than that, and it doesn't matter sort of where you are as long as you can continue to do that. So what are you doing now?
Parallel lives to a degree in that regard. Stuff we're doing
I knew that. And Susan
You're
said,
APA, I was ASMP.
you and I would get along.
It's so funny how that works, but for me, it's not about the photography at all. That's just the medium that I can use to connect to people.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing. Yeah. So this is
you're telling me this is an iPhone picture too.
Yeah, this is during the last
You're killing me here. I'm
So
a Sony shooter.
last fall. It's such a funny. It makes me feel like a kid again, literally running around. And you'll see this eventually. I'll share this with the group when this comes out. But this is during the last big shoot I did in the fall in Italy with the iPhone Photography School. And so we're doing this iPhone landscape mastery course. We're still editing it, day by day, week by week. I had a Zoom call with them in Europe yesterday. And so the idea was how to capture and inspire everyone to just go and shoot with whatever tool you have. It doesn't have to be an iPhone. It doesn't have to be a phone at all. There's no excuses to go out and just truly enjoy the beauty of life, whatever that is for you, whether that's food, whether that's people, whether that's nature. But there's no excuses to it. And so if you can go out and do this with the phone, you can go out and do it with anything. And so that's what we captured for a month in Italy before this whole thing shut down. That's what I was supposed to be doing, starting in Japan and then Spain and then Greece before this thing, really shut the world down. So I'm very much looking forward to get back to that. We had such a blast filming this too. We had 2 camera crews, drone operators, we had producers, directors, and the team of us. We were like little kids, literally running around. They'd get the drone out. They're like, just run up this valley, run up this ravine. And I'm just like out of breath, panting, sweating, getting all these photos. And they're like, where do you get the energy? And I was like, what do you mean where do I get the energy? Look where we are right now. Look what we're doing. I'm living my dream every day. I don't need caffeine. I don't need sugar. I don't need anything. Just put me in this beautiful spot. And I get that same feeling every time I walk outside the RV here. The same exact.
Where's this one?
This is in the Alps di Suissi in Italy too. It's another shot we took. So we did sunrises and sunsets, but much like Susan and I, we were doing sunsets here because from a filming perspective, it's a climax when it comes to the sunset rather than an anti-climax starting with the sunrise. This is one of the highest alpine meadows in Italy. And what an amazing experience. We had wild horses running around. We were jumping over fences. Fun little fact, the first week we were there, we can take the cable cars up, but then they closed them down. So we had to finish up the shoot. So we had a hike up from the valley. This took hours. They were very long days. And honestly, it was the most rewarding, hardest work I've ever done. And the most fun by far. But look at that. I mean, with a phone, come on.
The colors are beautiful. Is this a pano as well?
Yeah, it's a stitched HDR pano. So to shoot the HDRs, I use Lightroom Mobile. And so, because just, a little side note, you can't really shoot in the native camera app and get the dynamic range you can because you can't shoot raw files.
Do you use any accessories on your iPhone or is it just iPhone straight?
I try not to. Now that I'm using the 11 Pro, we got that, just before we went to Europe. There's 3 cameras. You have a 13 millimeter, you have a 26, you have a 52. I'd like to get a telephoto we're expecting on the next one. but having a 13 millimeter and then to be able to switch over to a wide angle and then a normal, just with a tap of your finger,
But no NDRs or anything like that, little things to put over your lenses or.
I have all the moment lenses.
Yep.
I've tried all of them, and do you need them? I feel like there's a diminishing return. There's
So
this
tell me about this one.
So this is at the tip of Dead Horse Point. And, I don't work with black and white a lot, but when you have these moody clouds that come in and they race towards this lookout point, just removing sometimes the color just lets you focus on what the light is doing. If you saw the before and afters, it would be kind of eye-opening too. I love showing people the before and afters too, because it's mind-blowing.
So where's your light coming from on this one?
The light is coming from behind and to the right, kind of scraping through the scene. So I'm shooting from the shadows. And when I can, I always try and shoot from the shadows. It just gives you more depth and dimension if you can handle it. And the new iPhones handle it really well, especially if you're either bracketing or shooting raw. The new HDR modes, even in the native camera app, is incredible. It's such a fun experience.
So is this coming to some of the stuff you're working on now, or is it we still sort of in the bridge period here?
I shot this a few days ago as we were filming this 21 questions for B&H that just posted yesterday. And like while Susan's filming me on the iPhone, by the way, on a gimbal, I'm shooting this and talking. So I figured this be kind of like a fun shot to bring you guys into what we're doing out here. And literally you can see it in the video if you go Google 21 questions. I sit down for a second, I'm still talking, I grab the shot, and then I just run around on the rocks again.
That you can talk running up a mountainside was impressive, but also the camera work was even more impressive.
Thank you.
The camera work was,
I wasn't even looking where I was running to the left.
That was a lot more impressive. So if people want to see the B&H 21 questions, it's very well done.
Check it out, but it just gives you an insight into, the joy. If you're just carrying this big tripod and you're on this shot and you take one beautiful photo, that photo could not be beautiful enough to compensate for all the things I'd want to run around and shoot and get different compositions and just play. And
this is just a horrible picture and it's just a terrible view, and there's nothing good about it I can say at all.
That's the Grandview Overlook out in Northern Canyonlands that's shut down right now.
Absolutely gorgeous. So is this is this current? Did you shoot this recently?
Yeah, that's just right around the corner. Is it Dead Horse Canyon? Yeah, Dead Horse Canyon. And this is during our last workshop. We were playing around with ProPhoto, their C1 Plus lights, because it gives you this off-camera flash, and just the lighting. Being able to introduce, that was the one thing that we were missing with mobile photography, was how do you introduce light on demand? How do you create magic on demand? Otherwise, you're a part-time photographer. And so,
are you playing with the ProPhoto lights for the iPhone, or are you experimenting with those?
Yeah, I experiment with a lot of different lights, and the ProPhotos were the one that really brought off-camera flash to the party, and the app and everything else. And so we had this model. This is during our workshop, and everyone's like, "Wait, what's going on right now?" And I couldn't believe it. It's just a beautiful thing to be able to introduce light with your phone and put one in one pocket, one in the other. And now my drone fits in the third pocket, and because the Mavic Mini, and it's crazy just to be able to run around. And what a beautiful time we live in. It's a strange thing to say that, but as a creator, even if you're not photographing right now, like there's so many things we'd be creating, like what you're creating with Open Talk, but what you're doing with APA, there's so many different ways that we can use our skill sets to help people. And that's inspiring me more than even seeing these beautiful locations out here.
I think having the ability of this time that we've all been gifted to utilize education and develop our skills, I think that's the true blessing in all of this.
Yeah, to figure out how to put a green screen up. You know what I mean?
We're still figuring that out.
Yeah, it's
So
all a learning curve.
This brings us up sort of to the present. And I have some questions for you that I usually ask of my guests, but also I want to throw it out to anybody that's listening right now. We do have the Q&A panel. So if you have questions, I would love for you to throw them in there. We have Jessica in the background kind of watching these questions coming in, and we'd love for you to ask anything that you might want to know. And it's open talk, so we'll pretty much talk about anything and everything. And we'll talk about the falling green screen.
What kind of tape are we using? The wrong kind
Gorilla
of tape.
tape. We're gonna have
It's not the right tape.
So when you're saying, that you're keeping busy and all that, I mean, I know a lot of people out there are getting to stages here that I saw it last week, people were starting to freak out. There was cracks. People want to either getting stir crazy. They're getting really scared about money. They're like, you guys run and have run communities and workshops. And I know you've been involved with, photo organizations. When people talk to you, like, I'm freaking out. What kind of advice do you give them? Like, what kind of hope do you give them? That's like, because the world's changing, and we're coming back to a new normal. And I think people are starting to realize that. And some people, honestly may not come out of this as a photographer, and some may. What are you saying to people?
It's a tricky thing, it really is. Some people maybe shouldn't be coming out of this as photographers if they don't want to. Find something else like this that does give you, let's be honest, more comfort. But for those people that this is who they are, and you'll know this is who you are, like there's just no way you're going to do anything else. You're going to figure this out. And it inspires me to work with people on an individual basis to help them do that. And everyone is going to have their own path. If you can interview 100 photographers and that kitty that's in the scene, and you can say, what's your path? How did you
He's
get started?
making a guest appearance.
Everyone's going to give you a different answer how they get started, and everyone's going to have their own different path on how they move forward. And it's going to be a total reinvention for all of us. But I really do think that just like we're doing this right now, right? If we were having this conversation on a panel in New York City, we get 50, 100 people to show up, and it'd be this community. And we've done this with projections, and you'll see this with projections out live, that now we have this ability to reach a global audience. And now we have this global audience that's learning how to reach us. And what does that mean forget about this notion of being a photographer. What does that mean for being a content creator? What does that mean for being an artist? Maybe we have to reinvent or relook at what it means to be an artist. How do we add value to the lives of others? And as others learn to connect virtually, there's going to be I think it's going to be a golden age of how we connect with each other instantly around the world, and we find new ways of doing it. And we're at the forefront of that. Every day is new. Every day is trying to figure out how to put a green screen up, how to run a Zoom call, how to take your DSLR or your phone that I can figure out to use wirelessly as a webcam, whatever that is. But it's shaking out, and there's certainly going to be an opportunity. Like, definitely keep your head up. There's going to be more opportunities than ever for those people who are willing and wanting to learn how to connect with people and find new ways of adding value. I think there's going to be a lot of new ways. I had a really interesting call with B&H today. We both did about doing just that, sharing and showing people, what we're doing. How do we do it? How do we connect with the rest of the world? And now we're all on this platform, no matter where we are in the world, to be able to do that. It'll be an interesting ride. I'm happy to be on it, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly think that we're not coming back to what we knew. And I think the industry is absolutely changing. But that means the playing field has once again been leveled, wherever, everybody was an influencer. And now, and now that, if you didn't get in early on Instagram, you didn't get those million followers and all that stuff. Now it's going to be the people that are really kind of pioneers in recreating the format and what's going to be the future of photography. And that's a high demand on people, where people were just getting comfortable, like, wow, this is my year. I finally got this brand, that brand. Suddenly they have to figure it all out again. And that's devastating for some. And, I think people, even if they, if it's their passion and soul to be a photographer, suddenly like, well, I have a kid to feed and I have this, and like, what's more important, feeding my kid or, my passion for photography? So this is a very scary, uncertain time. And I try and always say, be positive. And once I said, waking up positive doesn't mean like, I'm going to go out and this is going to be the best day ever. This is going to say there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And how do you explain to someone what the future is going to look like? What do you think the future is going to look like? Do people right now just focus in on doing their webs, and knowledge, or should they reach out to people, or what does the industry look like, in your eyes coming out of this?
I think a little bit of all those things. I mean, in order to get ahead of everything, you should be networking. You should be taking care of your family. You should be thinking about what will people need at the end of this. Like, I mean, think about photography, event photography. That's going to be different. You're going to have a whole bunch of different logistics you're going to have to plan out, and different contracts, different everything, because who knows what the event world will look like. So I think in order to move forward, you have to think about every realm of your business and what will be needed at the end of this. And I don't actually have the answer to that. I don't know what the future holds for photography. I'm curious, every day I think something different, but like the online presence is important. Staying in communication with your clients, seeing how they're doing is something I've been doing, reaching out to them. I've noticed a lot of clients now have time to do wedding albums, so I'm designing more wedding albums than usual. But it's an interesting world we live in. I don't have the answers for you yet, but
Yeah,
we'll see.
I think
And I would add to that too, not to add too much to it, but that I don't want to minimize that either. Like there are bills to pay. There are very real practical issues that we're facing, that the world's facing. And sure, it's one thing to be inspired. It's another thing to make money and put food on the table for sure. And that uncertainty it's there, and it just has to be acknowledged. And I think to a degree, we have to get comfortable with that uncertainty. And if you can get to that point, I'm just throwing everything out there. And like Susan's saying, your network, your clients. I was on the phone a few days ago and I had a client that we were talking about doing a project, and she's like, we want to do this. This is how we want to do it. And she just started crying because she's like, I just want to make sure you guys are okay. And there's a human element to this that I'm connecting with clients that are, it's just such a more real, honest, open conversation that starts every email and every dialogue with, first and foremost, how are you? How is your family? How is your life? And when you connect with people like that, I think we're all going to pull each other out of it.
And it has to be true empathy, not this, hey, we're looking at, we want to see how you're doing with COVID-19, all these emails. Right. And marketing is like, you can tell immediately when it's like this forced chain email. If it's honest, yeah, and someone just reaching out just to be honest, I think that's when it makes the difference. And if you don't do it that way.
Yeah. We were talking to B&H and we spent the first 10 or 15 minutes talking about building forts for his kids in his apartment. Like there's a human element that you're going to see everywhere. And that's the first place to start with your clients, your friends and family, is to build that element and have that at the forefront. And people are going to come along. What can I do for you? How can I help you? How can you help me? How can we really build together from an honest and open place? And I think that's going to be a beautiful thing. It's already a beautiful thing to witness. From a more practical standpoint, I'm looking at and we talked about this briefly, but I'm looking at every technology that I can use right now. I've contacted a digital frame company recently about finding ways that I'm always trying to figure out how I can empower artists. So that's what Projections.live is doing. And maybe we should talk about that in a few minutes, but any way where I can find ways. So building websites for photographers, finding a way that their supporters can support them by purchasing prints. And this digital frame, for instance, is how can you create a page where, how do you create an object where someone can just look at your work and support what you're doing directly? How can the artist be supported directly by their fans, by their friends, by their family, by their loved ones, without having that job, without having a client to give them that income? How do we directly connect with the people who want to support us? That's going to be a really interesting dialogue to have as a community and as just an industry as we move through this. And those connections, personal, professional, and everything in between, are going to be paramount into who's going to come out of this and who isn't.
So a question, having dealt with corporations like Apple and Adobe and B&H and stuff like that, where are you seeing that you were a couple months ago, and what are they asking for? Are their needs pivoting to now? And are they asking for work, or how is that translating? And it's the future of this is like uncertain, and we don't know like what these clients. I know certainly. So I shot a lot for NBC that they scaled back and fired a lot of crew and cut their budgets immensely. And we're coming back to stuff that's very different. What are you seeing demands and asks from you, or in the industry in general?
I flip that entirely, and I start with the uncertainty. Where are you guys? Do you guys have a plan? And then I try and build from there. All right, can we figure this out together? Because a lot of them don't know. Right. And if you have that trust with your clients, whoever it is, then you can have that dialogue with them. It's like, okay, where are you? What can we do together? How can I help you? This is what I suggest. And it's almost like a brainstorm. And I've been having day after day brainstorms with all these people. How do we best approach this? And that's what we had with B&H. That's what I had uh, with, with Adobe, with several different clients is how do we approach this in a way that leaves everyone a winner, that empowers everyone, that gives them real value, and starting with that uncertainty and honesty and authenticity in that conversation is a really interesting way to start it.
I think it's a great question is what are your needs? Because I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's needs are so different right now. So if you talk to your clients and say, well, are you looking to have more digital content? Okay, well, guess what? We could do online content. Do you need more stories written or do you need more text for your website? You know, then you
Yeah.
can build on that. You know, it's good to know what they need and then you can meet their needs.
There's a greater need for content now than ever. You know, if there's a
Yeah.
silver lining to this, there's something to keep in mind. There's a bigger need for content now than ever. And we can produce it anywhere we are if we have an internet connection.
I think what you brought up is an extremely important point, and I think it's sort of the key to this is that honest reach out to people. Is like, all right, what do you need, and how do we help each other? And understanding that right now it may not be about money, but how do we, in the future we'll get there. But what do we do now to make sure we support each other and get through this? We're going to open up to, I think, Jessica, if we have any questions there, let me know.
Hey guys, yeah, we do. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, so our first question is from Charles Chesler asking, what, if any, are your favorite go-to apps to use with the phone? And we already heard Lightroom, but any others you can share?
Well, Cliff is the app guru, so I don't know if you want to ask him that question.
Oh, Charles, you opened up a can of worms.
What are your go-to apps that you
like,
definitely?
These are each one of these, by the way, like these are just camera apps, and I have multiple screens. So
what are some of the ones that you always go to? Like, these are the top three that will definitely touch my pictures at some point. Like if you lost those three, you'd be like, oh, where are they?
the very first app is the native camera app on my phone. I always start there because that's what this all comes down to, is the simplicity of it.
Your phone comes with that one. People want to know what the ones you download.
Well, Photopills is my favorite one because we're always scouting where's the sun going to rise, where's the sun's going to set, where's the Milky Way going to rise. Literally, I walk around with Photopills open all the time, just looking where the stars are going to be and where the North Star is to see where it's going. So that's my favorite.
And then Snapseed and Adobe Lightroom. Adobe Lightroom is a natural second. If I'm not using it as a native camera, but instead of the native camera, because I can shoot the HDR RAW, to quickly process something, it's so intuitive and easy to use. And Snapseed is another one that it's just.
Snapseed is one of my go-to favorites. And here's one. I don't know if you know this one. Lenka. It's a black and white camera emulator. It's one of the coolest black and white. LENKA.
Got it.
It takes black and white pictures that just are insane. The look of them is just, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's fun. It just makes it fun again. It's inspiring to.
It allows you to be creative in one place. I mean, everything's on the phone. You can go from one app seamlessly to the next. It's that fun, creative thing that's. I always said, when you start out as a photographer, there's so much fun and joy in it, and then you start understanding like, wow, this camera is technical and stuff like that, and that one circle of creativity, suddenly the second circle of like, oh, my settings, do I do ISO, do I this, do I that, and suddenly you're so grasping for the technical that creative circle just goes out of whack, and it takes you so far to get, once you get that technical mastery down, that you forget about it, that suddenly you can sync up that creative circle again. And that's where you need to get to. And that's where the iPhone makes it so much fun and creative, because you just go out and shoot and enjoy it. And if you want to be, manual, it has the capability to do it. Do we have another question?
Yeah, I always said the camera that you have in your pocket is the best camera, but it's not. It's a camera that makes you want to shoot.
Yeah, and that one, it literally fits in your pocket, no problem.
Yeah, we have another question from Thomas Kelly. How are you syncing the iPhone to ProPhoto?
How am I syncing? So ProPhoto has their own app, and so with the second, I haven't seen. And really, there's something to be learned from other manufacturers. The second you turn on that ProPhoto light, the app pops up. It syncs instantly. It is the most seamless process because it can be such a pain. You're like, oh, let me turn the camera on. There's a lot of camera companies that can learn from this, but it's like a whole process, and you have to stand on one foot and you've got to turn in a circle and hopefully it syncs. This syncs like instantly the second you turn it on, and it just works the way an Apple product works. It just, you turn it on and it works. It's so simple. I don't even have to explain it. You just turn it on and it will sync.
Nice. And our last question from Don Rose, are you devising new classes at this point, or is it too soon to start thinking in that direction?
Well, we have some schedules for October, even as August, you know, we're gonna, even July. So we're waiting to see how this all kind of pans out. But definitely, I'm hoping the October ones are gonna be happening because we have an amazing October lineup.
Yeah.
We're going to do a fall foliage chase starting in Nova Scotia, heading to Acadia and Bar Harbor, making our way down to Vermont. And we're going to be inviting students to come along for the ride. So we're hoping that everything will be clear in the next couple months to continue with that plan. And then our 2021 schedule, we're building all the time. Why not? You know, we're hoping things will be good by then as well. And then we're working on some online classes. So Cliff is going to be working on some Lightroom bootcamp.
Yeah, there's a lot of training coming out, and I think, you know, as people get more comfortable to learning from their screen, and if they're not, they're going to be soon. And so really, if you have something to share, you can film it, you can record it, and that's another great way, you know, for the photographers that are listening to generate income, is you'll find your audience if you have a skill set that you can share with other people, and that will add value. So one of the things that I do is Lightroom, born from the very same reason why I shoot with the phone, is I want to find the easiest, simplest, most intuitive possible way, most efficient way to do things so we can focus on the creative aspect. And so I figured out through the years of working with students and Adobe to do just that. And so I do boot camps back in New York quite a bit, and now we're going to take them, you know, virtual, and just offer this out to the community, that now we actually have those rainy days to go back and look at our images. Which ones can we edit? How do we edit? How do we share that? How do we build a website in a way where we can have a gallery, where we can have automated order fulfillment and delivery to the doorstep of people who want to pay for our images? I walk people through that entire process, from the second they press the shutter to they take the memory card out, through the second that the client puts in their credit card info, and give them an actual solution that will empower them to generate income no matter where they are. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It's not complicated at all once it's set up.
Awesome. And where can people find those virtual classes and offerings? I'm going to type this into the chat for everyone.
Yeah, if you Google my name, Clifford Pickett, but my website's cliffordpickett.com. We're working on a few now. And then Susan Magnano.
You can go to my website for in-person workshops, which is Photour Adventures. That's PHOTOUR adventures.com. And hopefully I'll be working on a a light painting tutorial. Yeah. So we're going to be working on that while we're out here. So
awesome.
Stay tuned for that
and
as well.
Some things will be coming up on B&H's pages soon as well. That's what we were discussing. So Monday will be the first of Lightroom Live series I'll be doing once a week, kind of training people, getting a community around, giving them like real world solutions and tips and advice about how to deal with the issues that they face, because everyone is going to be facing different technical challenges. And honestly, just reach out to us. That's the best way to do it. Just shoot us an email, just cliff@cliffordpickett.com, or
Susan at Photour Adventures, and follow us on Instagram, Susan_Magnano.
Yeah. And it's not about,
you guys are rounding up the episode with the plugs. We're going to get to that.
It's not about
we're going to get to that.
It really is.
Before we get to that, why don't we share a video or something that you guys get?
Oh yeah,
okay?
totally.
Let's go there first.
So guys, this is a little bit about what we do every day. If it moves smoothly.
Yeah, this is the stop motion of.
It's going to be a little choppy on Zoom, like, but you'll get an idea. And when we put it back on YouTube, we'll make sure that we load up the good video.
This is a day in the life of Susan and Cliff in Utah. It's so beautiful here.
I know where I'm going when I get to travel again.
We've been talking with the Moab community about helping them out since we kind of live here now. So we have a meeting with the community board to see how we can help local businesses. So we're not just having fun here. We really want to kind of meet the community and become part of them, become a local, you know.
This is all shot on the iPhone too. Just an Osmo.
No, I think it's shot on a van.
Yeah,
It was
that's
shot.
shot on a van too.
Cliff likes to stand on cars.
That's before we got the RV, before we upgraded.
This is the same video again.
This
Here's
looks a
your
little different.
Yeah. So this is the White Rim Trail. This is, it's closed down now as part of Northern Canyonlands. Very famous, incredibly scary road to drive. So we hired a professional. This is the director of search and rescue out here, where he was. And so we just kind of, we were like kids running out,
hanging
climbing on the
outside of
roof,
the truck.
just with their phones, and just it felt like just being a little kid again, just enjoying the sunshine, enjoying the day, enjoying where we are, just enjoying. We can't say where this is.
That's crazy.
Might get in trouble.
Look at that crazy guy taking a picture.
Yeah.
So if anything, we hope to inspire you guys that we're gonna get through this, and then you guys are gonna be on crazy adventures, and you're all gonna be welcome to come join us. But
And these places aren't going anywhere. They'll be here. They'll be here for a while. So work on that skill set, work on your techniques, work on that digital catalog. So when this whole thing does open back up again, and they're talking about doing it sooner than you think, much sooner than you think, actually.
That's just beautiful and inspiring.
Yeah, go out there.
So we're getting to the last couple of questions here. And so at the end of the day, I mean, it's usually I'd ask a question, how do you find your Zen place each day, and what do you do to de-stress yourself and get away from the news? You've already done that. You're just so far out from, and in beautiful peace and away from it all. But do you find yourself doing new things each day that you didn't do before? Like, I'm going to go out and take that extra time to have a cup of coffee, or do Pilates, or something Zen, or what do you find yourself doing now that you didn't do before?
So before this, I never lived with Cliff, so I didn't have a green screen that fell down every second. But we actually start our day every morning with meditation and setting our intentions and our goals. Typically, it consists of trying to
fix this green screen.
Okay.
This is all you, Susan. This is on your side.
It's okay.
You can just pull it down at this point. Just pull that sucker down.
Oh, it's right close. But yeah, meditation is one every single morning. There's an app. Here's another good app, Calm.
Yes.
So start that, and it sets your intentions for the day.
I really think because a lot of us don't have an organized schedule, we don't report to work anymore. If you make a list of like 3 things you want to accomplish, then you'll stay on track. Because I've been sometimes when you don't have a schedule, you'll just go off in every direction and nothing gets done by the end of the day. So we like to set a goal. These are the 3 things we'd like to accomplish today. And then
routine. And then we do, so I was doing the Swan. We're learning Tai Chi from a Tai Chi master, which happens to be our host out here. So that's something certainly I never thought. I thought I'd be filming, the next installment of a landscape mastery course on iPhone in Japan.
Cue the video of
No, don't, you better not. But yeah, that's never thought I'd be, living in an RV, driving to pick up and doing Tai Chi in the morning. Life changes, but having this little bit of a routine to hold on to.
Yeah.
And starting the morning with, what are our intentions for the day? And then every night it ends with, what have we accomplished? 2 things, actually. What are we grateful for? 5 things we're grateful for every single day before going to sleep. What are we grateful for? And what have we learned?
Yeah, I think if you don't stay motivated and busy, it's easy to let the demons and the fear creep in. So I think it's okay to take some time off and to do certain things and just let yourself kind of absorb it all. But I think the more you make that plan and wake up, and one of my earliest guests said one of the best things she heard was when she wakes up the first thing to do is to create and not consume. And that just keeps replaying in my head how many times we wake up in the morning, the first thing we do is turn on the news, or the first thing we do is check our email. The first thing we do, it's go out and do something, whether it's, taking a sunrise or take a little time to do something, that you don't normally do, something craft worthy or something, or a piece of photography or something that's for you to create. It can be anything, a moment of, taking Calm or, using Headspace or any apps like that. I think it's so important. What are you in this missing the most?
Well, we're out here. I miss my family. I miss
Yeah.
my parents. I miss my brother. I miss them because I don't get to see them. We talk occasionally. I miss my friends. But I guess we'd all be quarantined anyway. So it would be kind of, I could be anywhere, but I miss that hug from my parents, or just like being able to see people that I love. I have been able to do it digitally, which is okay, but it's not the same.
I'm gonna give it
And
to
for you,
you
Cliff,
one more time.
what do you find yourself missing at the moment? That sort of like feels like it's been taken away from you, and when you get it back, that's one of the first things you're gonna do.
Oh, I mean, just instinctually, I would have said rainbow cookies, but we got those. No, honestly, I think it's what I miss the most is having an in-person conversation and seeing someone smile. You know,
Yeah.
with these masks on, you don't see that smile that you can bring out of people, and not having that in person, it's an adjustment, and we're going to be able to do this remotely. We're going to be able to connect. We're going to learn how to connect with people honestly and authentically at a distance virtually. But in the meantime, it's a little bit tricky and challenging, and I do miss that interpersonal, one-on-one communication conversation. Yeah.
Now, a lot of these things you brought up, you want to talk about projections, because I know that's a project you're working on. Did it in person, and it was a project that ran for years that people would gather at, and now you've turned it into a virtual gathering. And how has that transition been? What challenges, or what have you found that was like, wow, I didn't expect this, or I really like this part of it?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, projections is basically it was an idea generated by Frank Mayo, the photo closer, and it was about just giving artists a voice, giving them a platform to share their work. There's so many incredible artists just in New York. I'm used to saying here in New York, but I'm not here in New York. But in New York City, it started, and there were plans to take it elsewhere. But it was about giving artists a voice and a platform to share their work, and literally giving their voice. Like, it's one thing to see an image, and if you saw my image and I saw yours, that's great. But to have that conversation, to know who that artist is a whole different thing. And when I came on board, I did a presentation on some of the work I did with these women in Cambodia and victims of sex trafficking, and I couldn't do it on a live platform. It had to be in person. And when I saw that, I realized, wow, like, these stories need to be shared. So that's when I reached out to Frank and I said, let's really take this up to the next level. So I started filming it. I built the website out. We're giving people a voice that they can share with the world now. And now one of these discussions I'm having with B&H and Frank and some other people I can't mention yet is about, now that we're taking this virtually, we can access the whole world, not just the people who happen to live in New York City. And what does that look like? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Can we really use this as a platform to bring everyone up by their bootstraps, to give all artists a way to share their work, share their voice, share their projects, what they're working on, who they are, in a way that they can give that to potential clients, customers, have people reach out to you directly, put it up on, they all have their own pages. So how can we give this back to the community in a way that you can share who you are and who you represent, and ultimately have that benefit you?
When and how do people find this, the next projections?
So projections.live, just www.projections.live. The next one's going to be May 6th. The last one we did was truly incredible. I know Claudia Paul is watching. She was
And
such an
Charles
amazing
Chesler.
artist. We're going to have some amazing artists coming up on May 6th, including yourself, sir. And the idea being is,
I had a momentary
have
freak out.
dialogue.
We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good segue, because the idea
because
that,
your first three, Charles and Alex and Claudia, have been shooting stuff in the eyes of COVID and during this. Claudia has been shooting, the medical workers, and it was an incredible project. Charles was shooting the faces of Zoom, and he's a portrait photographer, and felt like he was robbed of, and very much like I do, I'm a portrait photographer, of shooting these people and the connection in person. And he has been shooting people through Zoom and doing photo sessions, and it's a wonderful project. And Alex has been shooting beautiful photos throughout New York and stuff like that. So when you guys asked me to be on it, I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, I'm not out there shooting. I'm outside of New York, and I want to be shooting there, and I'm doing all these live presentations, and that doesn't really equate well to projections. And I knew that I had been asked some questions, and I'll save this for
So you
for
still have
for,
some cat
save this
photos. What am I supposed to do with cat photos?
I don't have to, oh yeah, the crazy cat photos. But I went back into my archives and I pulled these photos that really I've been hiding from for a long time, and they've been sitting there. And one was such a difficult project. It was when I went to Uganda, and it was kids that basically have no one. Their parents have either been executed or on death row and have no one. And I've had those pictures sitting there just because it was such a dark topic that I didn't want to deal with it. That now that COVID's here, and these last couple of weeks, the darkness and demons have been banging on my walls, and I've definitely felt ups and downs in a big way. And not to be able to connect with people was freaking me out. So I went back and dove into these dark pictures and pulled happiness and also pulled real emotions out of it. And then I went back to my happy place of pulling another project. But I'm so psyched to be on that. But for a moment there, when you said, well, we're really doing something COVID related, I'm like, well, these are COVID related.
Everything is, yeah. And honestly, I think that's going to be really rewarding to share that with other people, because the community is mainly photographers, and how many photographers are in that same boat right now? You're feeling stuck. You're feeling like, I can't go out and shoot. You're feeling kind of restrained. But what you're not doing is looking back at all these beautiful images that you've created, that you haven't visited, that you haven't edited, that you haven't shared. And I think it's going to be really inspiring and really, a lot of people will take a lot from that to say, what do I have in my closet? What haven't I shared? What haven't I opened up to the world? Let me revisit that. And what a perfectly relevant and beautiful time to be able to do that. So I'm glad that you came up with that.
I'm really looking forward to being on it. What projects are you working on next, or what's kind of brainstorming your heads now?
Well, I'm still going to continue doing my night photography. That's my passion. Continue to make a light painting tutorial. And then we're working with B&H to create some content. Living on the road in the RV is kind of a fun topic that we're going to try and capture as well. And working with the community here in Moab, we've been talking with a couple key players, and how we can help the local businesses is on my agenda as well. Yeah,
you can ask me every day, and I'm going to give you a different answer.
New. Yeah, I hear you. I'm the same way.
Adobe's
don't take the downtime well.
Adobe's a couple things. ProPhoto, the lighting companies, there's some things I'm working on with them that'll be coming out shortly. B&H. There's a few things. So I'm going to have that Lightroom Live coming up. That'll be a weekly thing. There's a podcast that will be syndicated through B&H, but it's live now with Steve Simon. I don't know if you're familiar with Steve Simon. Yeah. Incredible street photographer who's not on the streets right now too. So I'm doing a podcast with him. I'm also going to be working with a green screen company about building out a better green screen. So you'll stay tuned.
I think you should paint everything in the RV green. Just paint it all. The cups, the walls, the pillows, everything.
Yeah, we're just going to paint it all. Yeah. And then we're going to give it back at the end of this whole thing. But it's a work in progress. It really is a work in progress, trying to figure out this next series of videos. How do I bring my experience virtually as a boot camp? The one-on-ones I do on a daily basis here between sunrise and sunset. And that's with students all over the world. And it's just a beautiful thing to be able to connect with them and go through their life's work and help them bring these projects to fruition. So that's an ongoing thing. But day by day, there's companies I'm reaching out to. There's organizations that we're having this dialogue. How can we work through this together?
Yeah.
And that's keeping me more busy than anything, is finding ways I'm working with these companies and building that dialogue. And yeah, that's a day-by-day basis.
So this brings me to my closing question that I ask all my guests at the end of the episode. What did you see in the last week that gave you hope, or made you smile, or made you laugh, that when it's going to be all right?
Cliff always makes me feel like it's going to be all right. He's always making me laugh. I mean, I only really spend all my time with one person. So
that's a good answer.
I don't watch the news. So it's really probably something Cliff has done to make me laugh.
For me, it's been this human connection, right? And, for a lot of people, that's what I think we miss the most. And so I had my birthday yesterday, and,
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And to not be around friends and families, it's been difficult, for a lot of people. And so, to wake up and to wake up to, and I don't recommend this for everybody, but to wake up to a Zoom call of 15
A
to 20
surprise
of
Zoom
your
call.
closest friends and family looking at you as you put your your shirt on and your hat because of the haircuts these days, and to have that connection and have everyone smile. And some of them haven't even met. They're people I met in Vegas. There's clients I have in different parts of the world, and to see all these people just come together, that was a beautiful thing. And then to end the night with our host over here, who, you know, because you can't really order a lot of food, he custom baked the
This
key
is how I
lime
spent
pie.
my birthday, which was on
I
April
saw
3rd.
Yeah, I saw that. I love that photo.
That's
love
how
that
I did
photo.
my birthday on April
That's so
3rd.
I
awesome.
totally feel you. And so to have this sort of like family at a distance, and to have our hosts make a pie and blow out candles, and to, you know, the Skype call with friends and family, it was a stark reminder, and also just a beautiful thing to experience. And that really did give me hope, because that wouldn't have even happened if COVID didn't happen. I wouldn't have been on a call face to face with people from all over the world who I've become so close with, all at the same time, learning each other and all sharing embarrassing stories of me. So that was a beautiful thing.
Yeah. For me, every week is pretty much the same thing, is that moment where 7 o'clock comes and everybody's cheering out the windows for the first responders, something like that. I have always been a sucker for moments that bring unity and people closer together, whether it was a concert where people all start singing, hugging the same song and rocking back and forth. And it's moments like that you know, you see that people can be beautiful, beautiful people and empathetic. And all these Zooms, I agree, are amazing how people are reaching out and touching people and wanting to support people. And I want to thank you guys for being such incredible guests. Is there anything you want to leave a closing note to photographers, and a little inspiration and positivity? Because we always like to be positive, which doesn't
Sure.
mean being happy-go-lucky every moment.
Just don't give up. I mean, if this is your passion, this is your love, keep working at it. Know that things are going to change, and maybe change for the better. So, you know, just maybe learn some new skills, stay connected with the community.
I would say, just in 3 words, you're not alone.
That too.
Just know that, just remember that, just feel that and experience that. You're not alone. You know, if this conversation and all the conversations you're doing on Open Talk show that, it's that you're not alone. We're all going through this, and you're not going through this alone. And just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think that's well put. And with that, I want to say thank you so much from APA. We obviously are very, very, it's even hard to put into words. We're so wanting to be part of a community that supports each other, that, you know, you said it the best, you know, you're not alone. And this is more important than ever, that we know that we support each other, and that we look out for each other, and that we say, hey, how are you doing? And we look in on each other, because these are the moments that are really kind of the most important that we're going to remember. And we're going through a historical moment that all of us are living the same thing around the world. And there's never going to be another experience, hopefully, like that in our lifetimes. I think it's when you kind of sit there and think about what's my role in this, it's very important as an artist to say, how am I experiencing this and what am I feeling? Because these are the archives that we're going to leave, you know, for the future generations and the people that are going to look back on this, because this is a historic moment that's going to be studied and looked upon for decades and millennia to come. And with that, I say thank you very much. Next week we have an amazing.
Thank you to you, Travis, for creating this opportunity.
Thank you
It's
for
amazing
doing
what you're doing.
and
I
reminding
agree.
people every day that they're not alone. Honestly, thank you.
I really appreciate it. And hopefully catch us next Thursday when we have another wonderful panel. And I want to wish everybody well, and stay shooting and stay creative, and reach out to people and make sure that you're staying in contact with people. Everybody have a wonderful night. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Everybody.
Take care, guys.
Smile.
That's the note to end it on right there.
Smile.
Right there. And I'm going to hit end. Goodbye.
Bye.